I'm here with Drew Houston from Dropbox. So now you just raised $250 million, and you have 45 million or so users using your service, which is ability to store anything on the internet and download it to your devices. Take us a little bit back to when you first started Dropbox.
Sure.
When was it? When did you first have the idea for it? And how did we get from there to here?
Yeah, well, so first this was something that I just personally struggled with, right? And it was the kind of thing where at school, so Arash, my co-founder, and I both studied computer science at MIT. And there you could sit down at any of tens of thousands of computers on campus. And not only your files, but your whole environment was just in front of you and kind of followed you around. So what that meant was you never had to go sprinting across campus to go pick up your paper or worry that your hard drive's going to crash, because that was the whole point. It's all taken care of for you. It's always available. It was more of kind of a Unix or sort of a little bit of a different approach.
Right.
But then I graduate, and for me it was kind of back to the Stone Age, where I'm emailing myself stuff. I'm carrying around a thumb drive. A couple times I almost put it through the wash, and I'd started another company at the time, and all of our most important stuff was on this little thumb drive, and I would pull it out of my pocket and find that it was bent and pray that I hadn't destroyed it. But I felt like I was just always one stupid move away from disaster, and that but more importantly that in the future we would have some kind of environment where everything was taken care of for you and accessible from anywhere. And even though there were all kinds of things that startups or big companies had made products that sort of were tangent to this, nobody had really made a product that people loved. And that kind of described that, or built that kind of system for the rest of the world.
Right. What year was this?
And this was 2007, maybe late 2006, when sort of the first, the idea started kind of started taking shape.
And when did you move out here? Did you apply to Y Combinator? How did that work?
Yeah. So.
Were you what class were you?
We were summer 2007.
Was that the first class?
That was no. This is it's 2 years after the first class.
Okay.
So maybe that a handful in between. But I met Arash through a mutual friend, and we interviewed together at Y Combinator, and it was kind of funny because we didn't actually know each other. At school.
That was before people really knew what Y Combinator was going to be, right?
Yeah.
What was appealing to you about Y Combinator at the time?
Well, a couple of things. So I had followed, actually before starting Y Combinator, Paul Graham had done a bunch of work on the problem of spam. And some of the things, some of the algorithms that he sort of applied to the spam problem are now sort of the basis for how the spam problem is fought. And I just thought it was an interesting kind of algorithmic challenge.
Right.
So I followed him back in, it was the early 2000s. And he had wrote these great essays on entrepreneurship, and that's sort of how I found him. I actually applied with my other company for Y Combinator funding and didn't get in.
Got rejected the second time.
It's kind of funny.
And what was that company?
It was online SAT prep, of all things. But great learning experience, a lot of fun, but not, eventually started Dropbox and that kind of got in the way.
Right. So take me back through that first class of in Y Combinator. How much did you sort of have the idea gelled when you went in, or to what extent was it sort of formed through that process?
Sure.
And what was the impact of Paul and the other Y Combinator partners?
It's kind of eerie, actually. So I've published my original Y Combinator application online, and I think it's if you go to ycombinator.com, one of Paul's essays describes how to apply to Y Combinator, and then I think at the very end there's some link to my original application. So we're unusual in that we actually the problem was so apparent that, and it seemed at the time pretty clear that at some point in the future, we would say this to investors, we're look, Tom Cruise in Minority Report is not carrying around a thumb drive, and you just disappear and over here, and your stuff's everywhere.
Right.
And that's kind of what I set out in my application. And so, but the Y Combinator experience was amazing, right? It's you know, Arash and I weren't from the Valley, you know, and it was just a really efficient way to both get plugged into the network out here, and to meet both, you know, past entrepreneurs who had done it before and told sort of their stories off the record, like the real sort of behind the music kind of stories. And it's messier than you might imagine.